When you look through the record books of any sport, you see the dynasties, the legends, the big names. But every now and then, you find a glitch, a single curious name that doesn't seem to fit the pattern. Well, today, we're going to peel back the layers on one of those mysteries to find a truly unsung genius.
Okay, let's really get into this, because that's the core question here, isn't it? This isn't just a story about who won a championship one year. It's about how they won and what that one moment of brilliance meant for the entire sport.
So take a look at the champions list from this era. You see a pretty clear pattern, right? Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Indian Airlines, these are the titans of Karam. It's a who's who of the usual suspects. And then, bam! Right in the middle, 1980, Nissar Ahmed from Hyderabad. He doesn't just break the pattern, he completely shatters it. So who was this guy?
To answer that, we've got to dig into the records and figure out who this statistical outlier actually was. Our investigation starts with a name that, at first, seems almost like a ghost in the machine.
And you gotta remember, piecing this story together was not easy. We're talking about a time before the internet, an analog era of paper scorecards and local news clippings. And to make it even tougher, there were other players with the same name. But our focus is laser sharp. We're talking about the master from Hyderabad who took the crown in 1980. Now, to really appreciate the magic of his victory, you have to understand the giants he was facing. Back in the late 70s, Indian Karam was basically a world with two poles, dominated by two cities with two very different and very powerful philosophies. On one side, you had Mumbai. Their game was all about the slam. We're talking pure force, raw velocity, and straight-up intimidation. And they were backed by big banks, turning players into paid pros. Then, on the other side, you had Chennai. Theirs was the scientific approach, a game of killer angles, insane precision, and geometry, all supported by big institutions like Indian Airlines. These were two corporate-funded, seemingly unstoppable forces. So while Mumbai was bringing the muscle and Chennai was bringing the math, a third school of thought was being quietly perfected in Hyderabad. This wasn't funded by big corporations. It was born in community halls and local clubs, and it had a secret weapon. They called it the touch game, and it was the complete opposite of the Mumbai Slam. This style was all about extreme sensitivity. The whole point wasn't to blast the board open, but to gently guide the striker using spin and subtle shifts in speed to sink coins that looked completely blocked. It was all about finesse over force. So how did he do it? Well, the signature move of this Hyderabad style was the press shot, and it's basically pure physics. Instead of a quick, sharp flick, the player pushes the striker, keeping contact for just a millisecond longer. That tiny difference imparts spin, or English as it's called, which lets the striker literally defy geometry. It could curve around blockers to find the pocket. It was an absolute game changer. Okay, so the stage is set. You've got the power players, the scientists, and then you have the touch artist from Hyderabad. And that brings us to the climax of our story, the impossible victory. The year is 1980. This is the moment. This is the year the Hyderabad anomaly put his entire philosophy to the test and somehow managed to breach the fortress of the establishment on the sport's biggest stage. And believe me, he didn't get an easy draw. Just look at the gauntlet he had to run. He beat Suhas Kambli, the 5-time reigning champion from Mumbai. He beat Maria Iridayam, the young prodigy from Chennai who would go on to win an incredible 9 national titles. He beat the best of the best from every school of thought. To give you a modern sense of just how huge this upset was, the source material offers this fantastic analogy. Taking down the king of the slam game on his turf was like beating Roger Federer at his absolute peak on center court at Wimbledon. It just wasn't supposed to happen. And this timeline just illustrates how incredibly unique his win was. Look at this. You've got the end of Suhas Kambli's dynasty in 79. Then you have the beginning of Maria Iridayam's dynasty in 81. And wedged right in between them is this one solitary monolith, Nissar Ahmed. A single, disruptive victory standing between two of the greatest reigns in the history of the sport. But hold on, the story doesn't end there with that one trophy. Not even close. Winning the championship was just his first act. Nissar Ahmed's greatest influence might have come after he stepped away from the podium, when the master player became the master teacher. You know the old saying, right? Great players often make terrible coaches, because they can't really explain the genius that made them great.
Well, Nissar Ahmed was that rare, brilliant exception. He didn't just understand the touch game intuitively, he could actually break it down, decode it, and teach it to others.
And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. This quote says it all. It's from his most famous student, Vemuri Anil Kumar, who became an international champion himself. It's just a powerful, personal testament to Ahmed's genius as a mentor. And this chart is just stunning. It shows you the proof. Anil Kumar suffers this career-threatening hand injury. Before that, he's a good state-level player. But after coming back and training under Ahmed, his career just explodes. He goes on to win international titles, including the US Open, where he's even named MVP. That right there is the Ahmed effect visualized. And this was bigger than just one player's incredible comeback. Through his students, Ahmed's philosophy, that Hyderabad touch, was exported. It traveled to the US Carom circuit and proved to be just as effective on the world stage. His legacy had officially gone global. And that brings us to this simple but incredibly profound idea that really defines Nissar Ahmed's entire career and legacy. It's the central lesson from the player who beat the Goliaths and the coach who created new champions. And it's a message that resonates far, far beyond the Carom board. Force is finite, but touch is infinite.